First of all, we couldn't be more pleased with the results today. Again, between this month and last month, that's about 8 million jobs, 8 million people we put back to work because of the CARES Act and working with Congress. I think, as you know, people thought we would have 30 million people unemployed. Fortunately, we never got to that. So 8 million jobs back, but our work is not done. Our work won't be done until every single American who lost their job because of COVID gets back to work. And there's no question, I want to thank the Senate and the House for working with us. There's no question these programs are working. I also want to thank them for extending the PPP. As I've said, it's our priority when we get to the CARES 4 bill in July. We will look to work with the House and Senate on a bipartisan basis to repurpose that money. We have about $130 billion left. There are going to be a number of businesses that are particularly hard hit, and we'll be looking to give those businesses additional money. So CARES 4 will be much more targeted for the businesses that continue to need work, but there is no question that this is working.
Mr. Secretary, are you concerned to see new unemployment claims rising? We're at 1.4 million layoffs last week, and that number is actually going up, not going down. Are you concerned about that?
Well, let me just say again, I want to just say we're going to be concerned till every single person is back to work. Now, when you look at these numbers, I think it's tough enough to predict economic numbers in normal times. In these times, you have to look at all these numbers in the entirety. So what I would say on that is there's a lag on the unemployment claims. I think you also know many of these states we said up front are completely backed up. So no, I would focus on the jobs numbers are the most accurate numbers, the trend of 8 million jobs back. But having said that, I'm concerned until we get everybody back to work.
Obviously, this is good news today, no question about it. But it's also obvious that the crisis that is surging through Sunbelt states, record number of cases nationally yesterday, threatens all of these economic gains. Many states are throwing their reopenings into reverse. What additional actions is the administration going to take to stop that? Will the administration and will the president specifically call on Americans to wear masks? And why don't we have, rather than you guys celebrating good news that it's already happened, why don't we have the coronavirus task force up here giving briefings on how to get under control what is obviously not under control, as Anthony Fauci said this week?
Well, let me just say I am on the coronavirus task force, so I'm happy to answer a few of those questions. I can't comment on the schedule of briefings. I'm not aware of that. The president specifically put in his speech encouraging Americans to wear masks, social distance, and hygiene, because he's the president of the United States and people are not around him close, and the people who are around are tested. I don't think he needs to wear a mask, but the rest of us absolutely, and the president supports wearing masks. I was at the House this week testifying. I'm sure you saw my picture with Chair Powell on the Wall Street Journal. I never thought we'd have a picture like that, but yes, we are encouraging Americans to wear masks. Now, unlike last time, as I've said, and yes, I realize the numbers of cases, we're monitoring that carefully. We're monitoring the hospital capacity. Let me just say I've been briefed on where we are on vaccines and virals. I'm very encouraged we'll have things by the end of the year. So yes, we're going to be careful. And I wouldn't say reverse. I would say the states appropriately are pausing certain things like bars and gyms, which obviously are the more contagious types of things. And I think the states are acting appropriately. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
John's question. There is John. Look, Deborah Birx has been down in Arizona and Texas. So they have put a team in play, and CDC is doing more of that. And what they're doing is working with local officials, government officials, but health officials, to really re-emphasize what I call the list of best practices. And I think that will do the trick. And if you have to phase out, as Stephen said, if you phase out bars, so be it for a few weeks. I think some places might have been over-exuberant and now have to come back and get back to these best practices of distancing and masks and testing and personal hygiene.
But Larry, the president just said a few minutes ago that we're getting this under control. It is obvious to anyone watching that it is not under control, and Anthony Fauci said so out loud this week.
I think what Dr. Fauci said is that if people don't take these things seriously,
Yeah.
okay, that the numbers could continue to spike. So
They're spiking right now.
again, what I'd say is the numbers are up. We're obviously watching this very carefully. We think that there is the right balance, and we're working with the states on the health issues and the economic issues. We'll go to the next question. Yes.
Mr. Secretary, there is a record number of new infections every day. Does the White House regret encouraging states to open as quickly as it did? And do you think some of that is backfiring?
No, absolutely not. I think we've had a very careful plan, again, working with the states. This is primarily the states' responsibility, but working with the states. And again, I think there's plenty of places we can get people back to work safely. I can tell you in the Treasury, we're going to take more people back. We are social distancing. We're checking people's temperature at times. There is a safe way to reopen the economy, and we're going to do that carefully. Yes.
Secretary, a lot of Americans are worried about what's going to happen with schools in the fall for kids, and there's a real economic argument that without schools, a lot of the workforce can't actually truly return to work. What is the administration doing about this? How are you working on it? Are there strategies that you're trying to employ here?
We're working with schools and universities. Again, I think in most cases, schools will be able to open safely. Some schools will need to spend money. One of the things we'll look at in CARES 4 is if we need to give money to schools to properly equip their areas, I think that's something that will be high. Absolutely. We want to make sure that kids are safe, and that if there is money that schools need to spend to safely have people in classrooms, social distance, spread things out, change hours, these are all the things we're looking at.
Mr. Secretary, can you assess the current need for American families in a Phase 4 bill? I mean, in the spring you said that a very big number was needed. What's the current need?
I think it's too early to tell, and that's the reason why we're waiting. We've spent an unprecedented amount of money. We have authorization of $3 trillion. That's an extraordinary amount of money. A lot of that money is not in the economy yet. We're continuing. That's why we're extending things like the PPP. And before we go back to Congress, and I'm already having conversations with certain members of Democrats and Republicans to get ideas, but we want to see the economic numbers. As I said earlier, people thought we were going to have 30 million people unemployed right now. Fortunately, we're about 15 million unemployed. We had 5 million people unemployed before this, so we got 10 million people to put back to work. The president's committed to do what we need to do in the next bill to protect kids, protect jobs, protect liability. Yes, in the back.
Mr. Secretary, where is the Treasury Department on sending stimulus check to mixed status families? There's a lawsuit that was allowed to proceed. Are you guys going to be doing that anytime soon? Or you're going to leave it to the courts to decide whether the Treasury Department has to do it?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. What's the question on stimulus checks?
Mixed status families, so parents of American citizen children, people who are married to undocumented.
Our position is that legal Americans, American citizens, should get the payments. That's our focus. If people are here illegally, they're not going to get economic payments. So, but let me just say, we're very focused on, as part of the next CARES Act, we're going to seriously consider whether we need to put more payments and direct payments over. Worked very well. Thank you, everybody.